I always tell people I heard whispers of injustice my whole life, and it never really made sense. Like there were whispers, and then eventually they became screams. Well, my name is Ravi Kahlon. I was born in Victoria, British Columbia, and spent most of my life growing up there, and then moved over here probably around 2000, and have lived here ever since. Right now, I'm in politics. I'm the candidate for the BC NDP in North Delta, and so I'm getting ready for the election. I think that in order for me to tell you why I do it, I'll give you a little background on my family and how I came involved. My parents immigrated in the 70s. My mom came first, and then she went back, married my dad. My sister and I were born in late 70s. When I was the age of 2, my sister was 1, my family went through some hardship, financial hardship. My dad used to work at the mill, and the mill shut down. And so my sister and I got packed up and sent to India. Wow. So we spent 3 years in India, and I was just posted the other day, my mom, often when she's reminiscing about everything that's happened, she like cries about the fact that she used to wash dishes, and I just saw my parents struggle, right? Like literally, my mom washed dishes, she cleaned hotel rooms. My dad drove taxi, he still drives taxi. They worked long hours, alternating shifts. I remember just having this moment of going like, holy crow, like here's my parents who like pretty much gave up their entire lives, work jobs that they hate, working long hours, not having fun, no traveling, nothing, not even going to restaurants, because they're like essentially wanted to give us opportunities that they never had. And then I remember making the team to go to the Olympics in Sydney, and I went on the first tour with the senior team. I came home. It was probably like 11 o'clock. I had packed my bags. My mom was like, "Do you want to eat something?" I'm like, "No, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed." I just closed my eyes and I'm sleeping. And my mom came in the room, and she goes, "Oh, your coach is on the phone." I'm like, "My coach?" I'm like, hello. He's like, "Ravi, congratulations. You're going to the Olympics. I just selected you for the team." And I'm like, "Oh, that's great, coach. Okay, thanks." And I hung up and I fell asleep. And I woke up in the morning and I was like, "Oh, that was dream. That was a weird dream, right?" And I go, "Mommy," I went to the coach call last night? She goes, "Yeah." I sprinted the phone, checked the display, and it was him. And I ran the computer, it was modem, and I'm like, looked on the line, I was like, oh my God. And then I called my mom and dad, I'm like, "I'm going to the Olympics." And my mom's like, "Oh, great." And then she walked away, like she didn't care Olympics, right? It doesn't matter, it sounds like another tournament. And I told my dad, anyways, it was a big deal. But at that moment you start reflecting about, where you've come to, and then you realize that it wasn't my work, it was their work, right? Yeah. And so I stood on their shoulders basically to get there, and so that's when my why started coming on. I'm starting to understand the commitments and sacrifices that were made along the way. But I became really passionate about social justice issues along the way. I was working at a major financial institution. I was in banking, and it was about 5 years in, making good money, but just feeling like this wasn't my calling. And one day I just heard a political panel talking about social justice and issues in the province, and Mo Sahuda, who's the first ever Salvation elected official in Canada.
That was back in the day.
Back in the day, but he was on CBC, I think it was, and he was talking about inequality and how the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and the middle class is starting to shrink and becoming to poor, right? And what that means for health outcomes, what it means for all these other things. And so I just remember going home and saying to my wife, I'm like, that is what I believe. Like, all these little whispers my whole life came to a moment where I was like, okay, like there was a definition to something that I thought was wrong the whole time. And so I just went to a couple of rallies, and I went and met with Mo, and I said, "Hey, I'm from Victoria, and when I was a kid I worked on your campaign." And so he was like, "Oh, great." We started talking, And the more we talked, the more we realized we believe the same things.
Yeah.
And then literally when Adrian Dix became the leader of the NDP, he said, hey, why don't you just come work for me? He's like, I need somebody from the business world on my team, because you think differently and maybe you can bring some insights. And so that's how I got involved in politics. For me, it's a process, right? And so it was not as much as the result. It was more about how we were going to run a campaign and how we were going to engage young people and motivate young people and engage them in politics. So in our campaign, we've got young people who can't vote. We've got kids who are grade 9, grade 10, grade 11. They care about social issues. They want to have a voice, and we're basically giving them a voice. And they come into the campaign and we say, what do you want to do? They say, we want to do this. And we say, all right, let's make it happen. So we're really, our motto in our campaign is empower, respect, and include. And instead of saying there's one box of type of person that fits in a campaign, we're creating multiple boxes, and we're using people's talents that they have, or passions that they have, and putting them to use. Some people come to our campaign and say, I don't know anything about campaigns, but I like social media. So we're like, okay, well, you're on the social media team. And so we had a person come in the campaign and she was like, I don't know anything about social media. I looked her stuff up and she's like, I'm like, oh, you do a lot of cool things on Snapchat. She's like, yeah, can I run your Snapchat? I'm like, sure.
There you go. Done.
There you go, done.
Yeah.
And we're doing some cool things. Like we find fun things to do when we start posting them. Yeah. But it's empowering people.
Yeah.
It's including them, and it fits in with our model, right? And so essentially we're just creating space for people, and instead of just putting them into go knock on a door, we're trying to find out what is that they're passionate about, and we're trying to help them build their skills. So even if a campaign ends, the idea is the people that come into our campaign, they leave with a skill set. They feel like they learned something and that they can use that in life, wherever, another campaign or in whatever avenue of life. Yeah, I've got, like I was saying, I've got two sides of me. I've got the very casual conservative guy, sometimes wearing jogging pants and just relaxing and chilling with my buddies. But then I've got the side that, I like to wear nice suits. I've got lots of suits. I've got my fun little pocket squares. I've got my fun socks. And so it's trying to be appropriate for the right place I go. Because, especially in politics, you find that people, on the doorstep, you probably want to be a little bit more simple. If you go out there with a Flavor Flav tie and a funky hat, you might just rub people the wrong way. And so it's really it's really two sides and having fun. My grandfather was the most important person in my life. I mean, my parents are watching this. I love you guys, but my grandfather was very instrumental. Like when I lived in India, I lived with him. I had aunts and my grandma. Everyone took care of me, but he was my father figure. And even as a child growing up, I remember I loved soccer. I used to play soccer every day. I used to play soccer. My dad would never come to my games. I think partly because he loved field hockey, and so he just wanted me to play field hockey. And so he was like, "Oh, you don't work hard enough." He was one of those old school tough parents. But my grandpa used to drive me every practice, every game, and he had this thing where every game he would go to, he would say to all the kids, "Okay, if you score a goal, you get $1. If you get an assist, you get $2." And so and he was known for this. And so he would take me to every soccer game. Kids would just come after and collect money and go buy a hot dog or whatever it was. But he passed away the year before I made the Olympic team. And so that's one thing I wish he was around to see everything that he taught me. He went through many struggles during the partition. He basically picked up a family and moved us to UP, which is Uttar Pradesh, which is a little bit away from the traditional Punjab. Everyone says Punjab, but we moved away. He basically was in the army. He was stationed he was in Hong Kong for a long time. He was in Japan. And so he was kind of floated all over the place. And so when he came to Canada, he became a commissioner because he just wanted to give back, and he the uniform was important to him. And so he was a mentor to me. Actually, my first political action was because of him. I remember he one day came home and said, you know, there's so many seniors here in Victoria, and we get together, but we have no place to go. And so he decided he was going to help build a senior center for a South Asian community. And so he went to Mo Sahoda, that's how my first campaign was involved, and said to him, we want a senior center next to the Gurdwara for seniors to go to. And so him and two other friends had this meeting, and they said, okay, well, here's a petition, you should go out and get people to sign it. And so I remember as a kid, I'd go with him to houses and they'd explain to people what they're doing, get signatures. Anyways, the NDP government back then, Mo was the minister, they announced funding for the first ever senior center, and my grandfather was one of the founders.
Wow.
And so that was my first taste of politics, was they got the senior center, and then I remember going out door knocking with him and not knowing what I was doing, just dropping people's papers in the leaflets in the mail. But that was my first political action with an outcome. But I was a kid, so I didn't really understand it. Now, when I'm older, it kind of all ties back in together, right? Like, my mentor did this, and so he was doing this. He was trying to make community better. He was trying to help seniors, and now I find myself talking about seniors and senior homes, and in a way, it kind of all ties back to him. So I'm glad you asked, because he's an important person for me. Yeah, I mean, I would say to anyone that watches this is that be true to yourself. Again, the lessons I learned, make an honest living, care about people that are older than you, respect them, and think about the next generation. What kind of world are we leaving them? And you can't sit around waiting for somebody else to do it. You got to end up doing it. If you have an opportunity, take it. Take the opportunity. Don't be shy, because a lot of people fear jumping in the deep end. And so I would say to people, take the opportunities, live by have strong values, live by them. Don't be afraid of challenges, and if you're passionate about something, do it. Whether it's your full-time job or your part-time job, do it, because you'll be more successful at that because you care about it than probably the thing that you're doing that you don't care about. And I've seen many people in my life who've been doing jobs they hated, who just packed it in for something obscurely different, and have had huge success. And my brother's one. And so I mean, there's many lessons there, but I would say be true to your values, fight for things that matter to you, and if you care about your community, do things yourself. Don't just wait for somebody else to do them, because they're not. Take ownership and take it over.